I know you've got an ear out for the start of the podcast, but before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to remind you to keep an eye out for Darrell Lee's limited edition Christmas treats, because they're in stores now. Like the iconic Christmas nougat pudding, so yummy and a gorgeous little gift. And some delicious Chrissy-themed twists on your favourite treats, like the Darrell Lee Rockley Road with chewy red and green jelly pieces, green and red crunchy milk chocolate balls, my favourites, and green apple and strawberry flavoured licorice. Watch them disappear. Your Christmas treats table will pop with colour and scrumptiousness. Spread some joy, bring the fun, and enjoy the Christmas tradition that is Darrell Lee. Hurry before they sell out. Darrell Lee makes Christmas better.
You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to The Five of My Life with me, Nigel Marsh. As an author, adman and theologian, I've always been interested in people's stories. Not just those with a high profile, but people from all walks of life, regardless of fame. Which is why I created this show. Each guest who takes the Five of My Life challenge chooses a favourite film, book, song, place and possession. They tell me their choices in advance so I can research them, but they don't tell me why they've chosen them. That's the subject of our conversation. It's amazing what you can learn when discussing someone's 5 choices. I hope you enjoy listening to the show as much as I enjoy making it. Whilst Five of My Life is not a political show, amongst the guests who have taken the challenge, there are inevitably a sprinkling of prime ministers, opposition leaders, premiers and senators. It's fascinating to hear them tell stories that provide an insight about the person behind the politician. Former Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Tanya Plibersek, served as a cabinet minister in both the Rudd and Gillard governments. So Tanya, how did you find the process of choosing your 5? Was that a bit sort of confronting, or was it easy, or?
It was a mixture. I mean, there are some really obvious things. I've always had a favourite song. I've always had a favourite author. But trying to have a sort of cross-section that gives you a bit of an insight into who I am more broadly, I think that was the hard thing. I could have just said Jane Austen, Jane Austen, Jane Austen, Jane Austen, but it wouldn't tell you very much.
It's not the 5 books film of my life,
yeah.
Tanya.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you for taking it seriously. I really appreciate you buying into the spirit of it. Now, your film we're going to start with, you have chosen a film from one of my all-time favourite directors. He directed Brokeback Mountain, The Ice Storm, which is one of the best films ever made, Life of Pi. I mean, this bloke is rocking it. And you've chosen the 1995 Jane Austen adaptation, Sense and Sensibility. Tell me about that.
Well, I love Jane Austen. She is my favourite author. And I think this is really the only screen adaptation that truly does her novels justice. I think Ang Lee has the sort of sensitivity, the light touch that you need with Jane Austen, because she's very funny. The way she writes is very funny, but she does give you a sense of the whole of a person, so their strengths, their weaknesses, their foibles, but she does it in a way that's very affectionate. And I think this film does that. Like, I'm not a Jane Austen snob. I watch every screen adaptation. I've even seen the film of Emma, which Gwyneth Paltrow plays in, and I think that's an abomination to have someone like Gwyneth Paltrow playing a Jane Austen character, but nevertheless, I enjoyed it. But Ang Lee has just the beautiful mix of humour and sensitivity that you need to do justice to these really amazing novels. And, of course, Eleanor is my favourite Jane Austen character. Eleanor's the older sister of the 3 Dashwood sisters. And
why is she your favourite?
She's my favourite because she's sensible, she's intelligent, she's responsible, and she feels deeply and strongly, but she doesn't have to display that all the time. Marianne, the middle sister, who is the sensibility in the title, so Eleanor's the sense and Marianne is the sensibility. Marianne's feels very deeply, but it's always on display. She's very melodramatic. She's passionate. What she reads, the way she reads it, the way she plays the piano. And poor Eleanor's left to deal with the fallout of their father's death and finding a new home and managing the family finances and caring for everyone around her. But she falls deeply in love, and she feels that she needs to keep that to herself. And I suppose what I like about Eleanor is that she feels deeply, but she doesn't feel the need to display that all the time.
So you speak wonderfully, movingly about Jane Austen in that film, but what's it does she mean to you?
I actually did a speech for the Jane Austen Society of Australia. They have a big lunch every year for Jane Austen's birthday, and they invited me one year to speak to them, and I wrote lessons, Jane Austen, Lessons for a Young Lady Legislator.
Oh, fantastic. Right, tell me.
I talked about, well, I reread all of the novels. I do that again and again. I don't know how many times I've read. Probably my favourite, Sense and Sensibility, I would have reread, I don't know, maybe 20 times.
Wow.
But I reread them all in a row, and I thought about the life lessons and the lessons for work that I've got from Jane Austen. And there's really quite a few of them, including, they're lessons about kindness and about making sure, I mean, in my job, you can think about how you suck up to people who are powerful, or you can think about how you help the people with least power. And I think, for example, in Emma, she has the obligation to be kindest to the people who need her help most. There's so many lessons for life in Jane Austen. What I really like about her writing is the way that your relationship with the characters changes as you yourself learn more about the world. So in Pride and Prejudice, you think, oh, what a silly woman the mother is, until you work out, hang on a minute, she's got 5 daughters that are going out into the world with nothing because the parents have basically spent their income as they've received it. You would be worried. You would be thinking about how they were going to marry and who they were going to marry and would they marry well. She's a beautiful, subtle, funny, witty, intelligent writer, and there's plenty of life lessons to be learned.
And to have an enduring appeal, especially around gender roles, and to be from such a different society and era, I think, what a genuine talent and gift that she had. The fact that you can be enjoying it and getting things out of it in 2019, given when she wrote it, is amazing. It's just fabulous.
And Pride and Prejudice, I think, in many ways, is a feminist novel. Elizabeth is saying, I don't want to marry unless it's for love. And she's quite explicit about how unfair it is that women don't get to choose, that, they end up either married to someone for reasons of financial security, or they end up portionless and penniless. She says how unfair it is that they can't just, ride off and make their fortune as young men can. And I don't know whether Jane Austen thought of herself as making a statement about women's rights, but it certainly comes through in the novels.
Absolutely. Julia Gillard is the only female Prime Minister in Australian history. Well, we're going to move from an Oscar winner to a Pulitzer Prize winner. Your book, you've chosen John Steinbeck's 1939 harrowing classic, The Grapes of Wrath. Would you mind telling me why you've chosen that, Julia?
I'm at this point moderately concerned that you think that I watch very
grim.
Deep, dark movies and I read harrowing novels. Maybe all of that's true, but I chose The Grapes of Wrath. I studied it here. I'm in Adelaide now. It's where I grew up. And I studied it when I was at Unley High School quite a few years ago. And it was a very adult book in every sense, so in some ways, I remember it as one of the first truly deep adult books that I would have read, or at least stays with me still. I'd read a lot of, Austen and things like that, but this is of a different genre. And the message in it of the essential dignity of working people in the face of unimaginably bad odds and hardship really resonated with me and resonated with what was my emerging value system. And so it's stayed with me ever since.
There's a quote from Steinbeck when he was writing it. He said to a friend, what are you trying to do, John? I love this quote. He said, "I want to put a tag of shame on the greedy bastards who are responsible for the Great Depression and its effects." And I just think, because you can't read that book without being, intensely moved and just the gross unfairness of how we organise society. And this is just a personal view, is when things go belly up, like in the GFC or whatever else, it always seems that the top end of town gets away with it. And the people who suffer disproportionately are the people at the bottom ends of the bloody ladder. I just be interested in you talking to that and A, if I'm wrong, but B, what we can do to make that not be the case.
I think that's right, and I think in the age in which we live, whilst in a country like Australia, absolute living standards have continued to rise. So even Australians who are in the poorest income strata, live with things that 20, 30, 40 years ago people couldn't even imagine of having. So I don't think we should underestimate the kind of societal progress we are capable of. But with all of that, here in Australia and around the world, there is rising inequality, not at the dimensions of other countries, but still troubling as it rises, and a sense that, life for the next generation is not necessarily going to be an easier one. And I think the most profound thing that societies have to believe about themselves is that the sons and daughters of the present generation are going to get a life that's more full of opportunity. And when people no longer believe that, and often for good reason, I think that's when you truly get fracturing and discontent. And so out of big economic shocks like the global financial crisis, obviously like the one that we're living through now, making sure that we can keep open the pathways of opportunity, I think, is just pivotal to, everything that we want to achieve as human beings, but it's also pivotal to the Australian ethos of a fair go.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you describe yourself as a long-range optimist?
Oh, I'm a long-range optimist, absolutely. And, anything that I've lived through in my life tells me that if you can maintain your sight line into the longer term, then you will see improvement. But it doesn't come in a linear fashion. And one of the things I talk about when I speak to people about feminism and women in leadership and gender equality is they're called waves of feminism for a reason. Waves come with backwash. It's not just forward, forward, forward. And so you've got to settle in for the recognition that there will be some very big jumps forward, but then some pushback too.
I love that way of expressing it. There's another way, which is the arc of justice is long, but it bends towards the light.
That's right. The arc of the moral universe, yes. The great Martin Luther King quote.
Anthony Albanese is the leader of the Australian Labor Party. Well, we're going to move to the 80s for your song on 5 My Life, and we'll make sure it's on the 5 My Life Spotify playlist. But you are in good company, mate, because Chris Mitchell, the long-standing editor of the Australian newspaper, chose it on 5 My Life as well. And last week, Keanu Reeves was on Stephen Colbert, and he was asked, if you only had one song you could play for the rest of your life, what would it be? And he chose it. The New Musical Express in 2002 declared it the greatest single of all time. It's Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. Tell us why you chose that.
Well, it is just such a fantastic song, and it evokes emotion. I remember the first time I heard Joy Division, I went into a record store and one of those old setups with vinyl, and you put the headsets on, and I had heard about this band, and I played Unknown Pleasures, the first album, and just was blown away by how different it was and how innovative, because I was told it was the punk era and you had the Clash and Sex Pistols, and you had the emergence of this sound largely from the UK, and in Australia you had bands like Radio Birdman and the Saints. Indeed, the Saints were before the Sex Pistols. So I just didn't expect it. I expected to hear something that was more punkish.
Sure.
And it was raw. The bass guitar is just phenomenal. And then I got a hold of listening to everything that I could. And it's interesting that the two singles, Transmission is fantastic, but Love Will Tear Us Apart, which is just an extraordinarily powerful song, and it has a uniqueness about it. It's not derivative of anything, but if you listen to New Order in their later years, and I saw them just a couple of years ago at the Sydney Opera House, of all places, you then go back and listen to Joy Division and you hear the continuity which is there. And I think that the fact that Joy Division, coming out of the punk era, and Ian Curtis and the whole tragic story, there's a fantastic movie, I can't remember what it's called, about Joy Division, that has lots of original footage of them live, and it's just an awesome movie as well. I think it's one of the best movies about rock music that I've seen, and it's just a great song.
There are some things in life that have, however tragic, such incredible authenticity, where the poor bastard was breaking up with his wife, writing a song saying love will tear us apart, and then he kills himself, and then because love has torn him apart, and then they release the song, and you go, blimey, that's not some pop music confection, that's a bloke's he's bleeding onto the guitar, basically.
That's real. And then you have later bands like I DJ occasionally. I used to do it a lot more, and I deliberately will play Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart, then New Order, Blue Monday, which are both, the thing about Love Will Tear Us Apart is, as much as it's a tragic song, it's a great song to dance to.
Yeah.
And then Blue Monday is you cannot stand still if Blue Monday is playing. And then I play the Wombats, Let's All Dance to Joy Division and Celebrate the Irony, which is just a good bit of fun.
Yeah, I love it. Now, I need to ask you a question that you hopefully can help me. I've always had an issue with the band's name, and I don't know how to resolve that. So I feel slightly guilty. You know where the name comes from?
No, I don't, actually.
Well, I am slightly nervous in telling you because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's awful. In 1955, a Holocaust survivor wrote a book called The House of Dolls. And it's about, unfortunately, the truth of the Germans in the concentration camps had divisions of women who were forced into enslaved prostitution for the SS.
Yeah.
And they were called Joy Divisions. Oh my
really?
God, yeah. And so that's where they got the name from. And I mean, I didn't know that for years.
Well, I wish I didn't.
Well, I'm so sorry to tell you. But the thing
is very dark, isn't it?
It's
but
awful.
Everything about the band was so dark.
Yeah, and obviously they were just trying to choose the most shocking name they can and blah, blah, blah. But it leads on to, I mean, it's for probably for a different podcast than this, but you go, gosh, where does the line for cancel culture be drawn? Because that is a brilliant song by a brilliant band, and then you don't know the story I've just told, as in I didn't know it until 10 years ago, and then you go, well, now I do know it. Do I now no longer like the song? And you go, well, no, of course I like the song. I've always liked it. So there you go. I'm sorry for giving you that piece of dark background.
You should edit that out of the podcast just for the sake of the listeners, I think, so that they can continue to enjoy it. But they were so dark.
Oh, it's horrid.
As a band. And the film I'm talking about, I wish I remember what it was called, is very dark as well. But out of that, New Order is happy, uplifting music, but it's essentially the same band, or the same nucleus of the band, of course, without the lead singer.
Jackie Lambie is the leader of the Jackie Lambie Network and a senator for Tasmania. Now, we're moving to your fourth choice, which is your place, probably my favourite place on earth. You've chosen Tasmania, the whole island. Tell us why you have chosen that on Five My Life.
Because Tasmania, mate, is the 8th great wonder of the world. Let's be honest. Now, I don't want to sell it out too much, because we seem to be stacking up with you mainlanders down here. Not that we don't love you mainlanders. But seriously, when the borders are open, you guys flood us. It's like we nearly have to leave. It's getting that bad. We've only just got rid of horse and cart off the road and stuff like that. It's still pretty old school down here to a certain degree. It's not fast moving. Like I go, you pop into Melbourne, you've got meetings over there for 4 or 5 days, or Sydney, and I tell you cannot wait to get home. And as soon as that plane door opens, you take the biggest breath because of the air, even the air quality. It's amazing compared to, those cities and that over on the mainland there. So I think we're just really blessed. We got a lot of diversity over here and landscape. You can be on the mountains and in the snow an hour and a half, or you can be half an hour away from the beach. It's actually quite amazing. The landscape itself, it's dry over one side, it's all green over the other. Of course, we have the deadliest animal here. We have the Tasmanian devil, which will just about jump. So, it's like a drop bear, but we call it the drop devil out of the trees. And we grow a heap of opium down here, mate. I mean, what more can you ask for? The whiskey, the cheese, the wine.
Tell us about your family holidays. Did you go off camping as a crew, as a family?
Yeah, no. So we didn't go too far away because there's plenty of places to camp. Grew up on sort of near the Gunns Plains River when I was a teenager. So we used to take the tents down there with the kids and friends, and we'd camp down there, take the big tubes down there and go down the rapids. But I think probably my favourite was when, up until we were about maybe 12 or 13, we used to go out in groups, go out to what's called Port Sorell Hawley, which is about half an hour from where I am. And we used to set up the tents, and we'd have all our cousins and that out there. We used to take the town over pretty much. And my dad would make sure the container on the back of the truck he was driving was empty, so all the kids would take their bunk beds and put them in there, and that's where we slept. For me, that brings back really, really, really nice memories.
Fantastic. And you now represent the island for the people.
Yes, I do. But like I said, we try not to sell it too much, because as much we love you mainlanders, you were starting to put us in overkill. You were coming down here in droves. Oh, it's bizarre, mate. You should be driving around here over Christmas. You cannot move. There is mainlanders, you see all the rego plates, everything. I'm more popular with them than what I am with Tasmanians. I get more hugs out of them, I think. It's bizarre. In saying that, you can see, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, you've got the young kids out there, they've got summer jobs, you've got the tourism going, businesses up and running that you would never thought would have existed in certain places. So, yeah, and they love it. Most of them will come back apparently a second time and a third time.
I tell you, it's interesting hearing you talk about mainlanders. I did some work on Flinders Island, and they referred to people in Tasmania. I go, where's your daughter? Oh, she's on the mainland giving birth. And I go, oh, what, Melbourne? No, Launceston. So you're a mainlander to a Flinders Island.
Oh, mate, no. No, we're actually holding the country up. We're just doing it from the other end.
Gladys Berejiklian is the former Premier of New South Wales. Well, we're going to move on to your possession. It's a bit of a royal groupie.
Yeah.
You've chosen a photo, a selfie of you and Harry and Meghan. Were they nice?
They were lovely. Very lovely. Very lovely, down to earth. And was wonderful to welcome them to New South Wales. But yeah, in general, I love photographs. They capture a time and place and capture history. And it's pretty amazing that you can kind of look at, when you think about key moments in your life, you kind of see flickers of images going through your head, and I think photographs are kind of the manifestation of that, aren't they?
And are you a silver frame type person, or do you just keep them on in the cloud? Or
no, I don't. I tend not to frame things like that. No.
Do you know, I reckon they're going to come back into fashion.
I used to be because I'm quite organised, obsessive almost. I used to be very assiduous in my photo albums.
Alphabetical or chronological?
Subject. So I used to have I had high school, then I had friends, and then I had my godchildren.
Me sad, me happy.
Not quite that much, but the physical photo album I had chronicled and put in order. But then as soon as the digital stuff started happening, I'm not very good at that. One of my sisters is exceptional at it, so she kind of is the family historian now. But I just take things I like, and people send me things and I save them. But I'm not very organised on the digital side. Yeah, but the photo, when it was hardcore photo albums, I was very organised.
Right. I love the notion of, and it drives my daughters in particular mad. I'll take one picture. Just like the picture I've taken with you, I get one. I won't, that wasn't a good one of me. Just take one.
Yeah.
But then when I scroll through retrospectively, especially of my family, with pictures that have got all my family, and I've got 4 kids, I love choosing one and then saying, right, that one, frame it. Right, just a small frame.
Yeah.
And that will stand out.
Yeah.
That will be on the top of the bookshelf, whatever. And
I've got a few ones I've got a few that I've framed, mainly of my family, a few that I like. But I don't have a lot of them around the house.
And is it true you have 6 godchildren?
Yeah,
it is.
6.
Right. Okay. So there's sort of there's a little bit of a you've got to have a few pictures of them.
Oh, I do, but in an album and on my phone, I don't have a lot. As I said, apart from my immediate family, I don't have a lot of photos around the house.
Right.
Because I'm someone who doesn't like to offend, and I think, I think of my friends, and I've got lots of close friends, and you just worry. I do worry about offending people, so I don't like
because you haven't. They're not equally represented.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if I stick to my parents and my sisters, it's safe ground. So
my mother-in-law, who is gorgeous and I love dearly, lives in England, has a grand piano, and my wife has 3 sisters who are all married, and there are lots and lots of pictures of their very impressive husbands. And there isn't one of me.
See? The fact that you even know that story says that you're slightly jarred by it.
Not slightly jarred, I'm crushed.
See? And I can imagine if someone walks into your home and sees all these photos and where am I and why aren't I here? So I think about stuff like that. I don't like anyone being hurt unnecessarily or...
Well, aren't you sweet?
No, it's just not really. It's just I think it's a normal human condition, but I don't like, for me, reducing hurt anybody feels is really important. So, yeah.
Well, there is a traditional 6 question, which is, who would you like to hear on 5 of My Life next?
Oh, great question. Who would I like to hear from? Probably Zuckerberg.
Right.
I don't know much about him personally, but I would want his honest views of the world on what he's done and the impact he's had, and whether he thinks it's the right thing and the right direction.
I'll get on the phone to him this afternoon.
That'd be brilliant.
Gladys Berejiklian, you've been a real angel. Thank you so much
You're very
for coming
kind.
in.
You've been very gentle and I appreciate it. I don't often get treated like this, so thank you very much.
That's a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this special compilation episode. Check out the full 5 of My Life interviews with these politicians and other guests, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you follow 5 of My Life, you might enjoy my latest book, Smart, Stupid and 60. In it, I write about a number of the issues discussed on the show. It's the 20-year follow-on from my first book, Fat, 40 and Fired. If you have any feedback on the book or suggestions for the show, please get in touch via my website, nigelmarsh.com.